What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Core Podcast covering all things Apple TV Plus. My name is Jim, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Luke and Kyle. And today we continue our coverage of Apple TV Plus's Murderbot. Today we are covering Season 1, Episode 9, titled All Systems Red. And we have Luke back. So, Luke, let's start with you. What did you think of the last episode? And then let's go right into this episode. What do you do? Go.
I just got done listening to your guys' podcast, and you nailed it that I was so annoyed that the episode I missed happened to be the one where not only do they talk about the alien artifacts or alien remnants that become super important to the plot again, but we also get the face of the third faction that we've been talking about since maybe episode 3. So I was sad to have to sit that one out. But on the flip side, not to confirm our priors, but I had a blast getting to watch 2 episodes back to back in a row. Like it was like an actual premiere show. And that's just how this show should be consumed. Like I can't even recommend it to friends until the whole season's out because I want to just tell them, wait till the finale's there, binge the whole thing. Cause it's such a fun ride when you get to just click next and see the next big moments. But for this episode specifically, I guess the last thing I want to ask is, which I didn't hear you guys talk about, was that the last time we'll ever see John Cho?
I think.
So like he's just probably
they
done,
could
right?
easily show prior Sanctuary Moon episodes
Feels
that
weird
he's
though. I
watching.
feel like he's been progressing through the plot as the show's been going
Yeah,
on.
I agree, but I mean, if they really want to bring him back, I feel like I don't know what what kind of contract he commands, but I feel like it's going to cost them money to bring him back, and I
Yeah.
mean, he served his purpose, and it was great and funny at the same time having him as the main character of Sanctuary Moon.
Yeah. So I guess RIP to Agent Colston and then John Cho. Probably won't be seeing him
Yeah,
again. But to focus on this episode, there was a lot of action here, and I feel like Murderbot had some growth. Like he kind of solidified himself as a good guy, if you want to call him a good guy. You guys were flirting with the idea of him actually betraying the crew. I didn't necessarily think they was going to go that way. And, they tried to fake you out with the double meaning of when he was talking directly to Gray Chris, but he's just a homie. I think he just cares about the crew, and that kind of gets reaffirmed at the very last line of this episode as he dies, which there's no way he's not coming back, obviously, but he says my clients are the best clients. So I just think he's now mentally past that hurdle where he's going to be fully in on the crew when they revive him. And then the other thing I will say is I also think that look we got from Gura at the very end is also going to be him passing the suspicion of Murderbot. I think we're all good. And starting in episode 10 after the revival, I think we're just going to be a happy family. Like there's probably going to be some crazy plot twists, but I think the group is the group.
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of laugh. I apologize. I laughed in the middle of your little monologue there because I was editing the last podcast with me and Kyle, and as we go through, it's just we say he, and then halfway through we start to be like it, and we're trying to fix ourselves, and it's just tough. But I just laughing because you were like, and he said, and I'm like, what are you emphasizing there, Luke? But yeah, I mean, it's tough, and we try our best, everyone. And we know that there has been people, there have been listeners commenting that we're not always getting it correct, but we are trying. But yeah, I really liked this episode. I really did. I thought it was very, very entertaining. There's obviously things to talk about, and it might sound like criticisms when we get there, but really, I'm gonna devil's advocate myself and talk about it. And for a little bit of a hint and a foreshadowing, it's like, we had an antagonist we were waiting for the entire season, and they're gone within 2 seconds. But do they really matter? Is that really the important thing for this TV show? Probably not. Alexander Skarsgård was freaking on his game this episode. There were a lot of funny parts in this that I was laughing at with his delivery. It was an entertaining episode. It really was. And I might say it was my favorite of the season, to be honest. And guess what? It was 30 minutes, not 22.
Yeah.
I always appreciate that.
It was nice to get this, like Luke mentioned, we're at this point, it feels like that we're a team. Everyone's kind of on the same playing field. It almost might feel like and end up being that this is kind of like a prologue-y type season almost, and that it's just showing us Murderbot and the gang working through all of the possible differences that they might have with the situation that they're in. And then it's kind of, we go through this near death or many near death experiences. And now we're just kind of locked in for life. And we'll see what kind of hijinks we get up to across the galaxy or the universe or whatever the actual geographical extent of the series will end up being as we move forward into multiple seasons. Although I have no idea if we'll get multiple seasons. Who knows? I haven't heard anything about a renewal or cancellation.
Not yet. Right.
Would you guys say that like there's still the potential for there to be a big bad that was almost paying for whatever Chris was doing here, but there's also the potential that they were just a random bandit group that decided to mine or look for these alien artifacts and it could be done? Like what would you put the probability on there being a next level of this group, or are we just going to take our adventure to a different planet in season 2 and then we have a whole new setup?
I could see it being like, and I might paint myself as a poser here because there might be some deeper things I'm not thinking about, but I could see them being kind of almost like a Scooby-Doo type thing where like we're just kind of popping around and unfortunately running into things. I don't think they're going to turn to like crime solvers in any way, but it feels like they might just end up running into things and not necessarily like villains of the week like you would get, but maybe villains of the season. And but I could see eventually maybe it working into this larger thing. But Gray Chris, my guess at the moment is that they're just kind of an isolated thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a good time to get into how I was saying, is there a problem with having an entire season where we're wondering who are these black sec units? Who's the big bad? What's the deal here? We get introduced to them last episode, and then already in this episode, they're pretty surface level, and then they're gone. And even the alien artifacts, yes, that came back into play, and that was what they were looking for. But again, it was pretty surface level, nothing except for the fact like, hey, they can make us some money, so they're worth killing you for. So that's why we're here. But to counteract what I just said, I do think it was the journey. I think that's all it was this season. I think the story they were telling could have been any story, any big bad, quote unquote, everybody drink, any kind of foil where it's just how Murderbot interacts with these people and their journey from point A to point B. I think the season finale will be them somehow bringing him back to life. They're going to have this, hug it out kind of scenario. Let's talk it out, and maybe just getting them ready for the big next journey. And I do think, Kyle, you may be right with this being very prologue-y, and I'm fine with it. It's doesn't seem to me like this show needs to be, like you said, they're solving a crime or they're doing something big against an evil entity every single season. It's just an entertaining show where, yes, there's going to be a storyline, but it's not going to be so deep where you're writing down theories and you're Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the board behind him trying to figure everything out. It's just an entertaining TV show.
Let me say something potentially controversial then off the back of this conversation, which everything is going to like my entire opinion of what I'm about to say can change on the back of the finale. But what I want to say is that if it is truly this surface level about the journey, doesn't have to be that deep, totally fine. There's a place for every type of show, every type of book. It does not at all push me to want to read the books. I'll say that if it stays like that, where each Murderbot book, the Murderbot Diaries, the sequels are just self-contained adventures like that slowly, of course, grow their world building, it's not going to really pull me in. I'd rather almost just stick with the show and just have a good time, sit back and binge it. Like that would be my preferred way to consume Murderbot. So I think that depending on how Gray Chris, the remnants of that, the alien remnants itself, what's dealt with the Corporation Rim and the company at large, like how that's dealt with next episode is really going to make or break my decision if I am going to read the books in the off season in between season 1 and season 2, if it gets greenlit for another one. Just because right now it doesn't feel like it's necessary to read the books if we're getting, if it's not deeper than what we're being fed. And I understand that like adaptations have to be shortened. They have to make cuts. There's probably characters and plot lines from book 1 that aren't even getting close to making the show. That would be fun to explore. But as it's sold right here, I wouldn't say that this is something that would push me towards the books necessarily. I'd almost rather just stick with the show.
I think there's ingredients for it being a much larger narrative. That's this general, maybe large scale struggle. We have Preservation Alliance that has their own ideals, morals, principles, convictions that seem essentially diametrically opposed to what's going on in the corporation rim, the company, and all of those things. The views that Preservation Alliance specifically has on sect units and constructs versus the way that they are used. I mean, because there was so many glimpses, I think, across this entire season of commentary on things like that. You know, the one that sticks out the most to me is the assembly line, the factory line of it. You know, how much they talk about the idea of indentured servitudes, and I could see it for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Blooming into this larger narrative of is it some type of social commentary on economic systems, and we're kind of into this whole space, not necessarily maybe even a space opera, but it's something that plays out across multiple planets and with factions and all of that stuff. I could see that happening. I just at this point don't know how much this show and the tone of the show so far leads me to believe it versus am I just like, could I just be really honing in on some of those smaller details that could just be, general world building, or are they there for, tidbits on a larger narrative versus just building out like an actually fleshed out world?
Yeah, and let's not forget, we still have that memory / deleted file that means something. And that could be the narrative that pushes us into season 2, that gives us something more for a bigger narrative. It could be that corporation, the company, forced Murderbot to do something. And then, of course, like you said, Kyle, it does get back into Murderbot has the governor module hacked. He's part of the crew now. Preservation Alliance agrees and believes that Sec Unit is a person, is not a thing and is not property. And they're going to take, they're going to have a problem with the fact that Murderbot was forced to kill all of these people, 57 people, if, that is what it is. There's something there, and I guess that will be in the finale. I can't imagine they're going to show us this deleted file and then have Gugu freaking, you like that, Luke? We didn't talk about that with you, Gugu. And have Gugu call him out and then just be like, oh, your name's Murderbot. We're mad at you for that. And then that's the end of the story for that. I feel like there has to be more.
All right. I feel like that's enough meta talk. Do we want to bring up any specific plot points, I guess, early on in this episode that is worth talking about? I guess because just a conversation starter, I was pretty surprised at how unintimidating Grey Chris was. Like, they almost made that part of the comedy, which they actually did, because the little side guy was recognizing the Sanctuary Moon quotes, which was hilarious, because Murderbot always gets very defensive over his, what does he say, premium quality entertainment, that nobody else seems to like the show. But yeah, I mean, that's what's leading me to believe that I think they're a one and done type of group here, because of just, it didn't seem like they had plans outside of money. Unless I missed like some of the hints there, but I do like the Murderbot plan that he had to save everybody, and it would have worked, and it did essentially work. It would have worked even more smoothly, because maybe the funniest part of the episode actually could have been when he does the dive and what does he say? Boldness is all, and the timer doesn't go off, and Gura and Pinley have to go in and do their part of the plan where they fix the timer, the countdown for the beacon to launch. It was all well done. Like, I thought it was all well thought out. It led to some comedic beats, but never felt the tension was high enough where I actually thought somebody was going to die.
It's hard because I never am scared of Murderbot dying, just because it feels like you could bring him back to life. Like, I liked the ending a lot. I liked the acting from Alexander Skarsgård. I liked how they shot it, but I'm not scared it's dead. Right? There's no doubt in my mind that it's going to be coming back to life next episode. But my question to you guys here is, Luke, you said that you pretty much had no doubt and no thought that he was going to betray them. You didn't think that was part of its plan. And again, I just said he and it's in the same sentence right there, doing my best here. But is the betrayal, quote unquote, everybody drink, is it talking when it's talking about the betrayal and going against the crew and changing the plan, was it because it knew that the real plan had to be that it was going to murder everyone in Grey Chris and that was what they were going to be against, as in our homies from Preservation Alliance? Was that the secret part of the plan that would be murder?
Yeah,
Is that what you're thinking?
I was taking the betrayal as he had to lie to them about everything. He wasn't actually going to betray them in a way that was going to leave them worse off. I was more just so that it was kind of like a plot device for the show to end the last episode on saying like I'm going to betray them. But I don't know. Did you think
But
that
the
there was a chance he
betrayal
was
is no, but the betrayal is that the plan was it's going to kill everybody on Grey Chris, and it's not going to tell them that's the plan because it knows how much it hated
they,
Labibi dying and or they hated
exactly.
Labibi dying and everything like that. Okay, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I was me and Kyle talked about it. I wasn't thinking it was really going to happen, but I did think its plan in the back of its head could have been maybe I will sandbag these people and roll out.
Mhm.
But the way this episode played out, it does just seem like it was making a plan, and the plan had a lot of murder in it, and that was where the lying had to come in.
Right.
Yeah, I just think looking back on that conversation that we had, and then obviously in the aftermath of this episode, it was always that the end result was going to be we've got a squad of
Yeah.
people. And I think Luke might have mentioned it in episode maybe 7 when we talked about that. We've just spent too much time with these characters, you know, to get to know them, their relationships, the dynamics. We have, I think, at this point, like a really solid idea of who everyone is and how they work. And it would have been kind of wasteful to just throw all that away.
I want to correct
For
you though to say when you're saying we spent too much time, you could say that we spent too much of the proportion of the episodes we've been given
Yeah, yeah.
with these people. Like I
To
still
yeah,
feel like I don't know anything about BW and Arata. Like I really don't know much about them, but for the screen time that we get for character development, they're getting what little pieces of it that we are supposed to get. The only exception to that would be Mensa and Gura getting legitimate character development, whereas everybody else is still getting screen time and you're getting closer to them. But I still don't feel like I know much about Pinley. Like I don't know.
I rock
Do you
with
guys feel
Finley a
different?
lot.
yeah. I think it's a small pie and they're getting a large percentage of it, but
Yes,
it's
that's the best way
not
to say it.
deep. It's
Yes.
not a deep pie or anything like that.
It's not a deep
Yeah.
dish.
Yeah.
Not a oh, love it. Not a deep dish, Kyle.
Wait, can I say something too though? I just want you guys' take on this because you mentioned Pinley and it just triggered something. I really I really want the crew to be mad at her because she just killed somebody, if not brain damaged somebody, and there needs to be a conversation around it. I don't care if it was an accident. The way that they've been treating Murderbot when he literally saved their lives through the little BB death and the other situations that they've been in, they better give Pinley at least 1 or 2 lines of shit for that because she just killed somebody.
Dude, they're definitely not going to, and you
I
know it.
know
That's
they're
the
not,
funny
but
thing
it's just
about it.
like it's
Yeah.
so hypocritical of
No,
Preservation Alliance.
it's
Yeah.
such a and this is what I'm gonna say. This is such a Luke thing to say because you always, when we're watching TV shows, you ride or die for the homie, and the homie is Murderbot. So you're like, you wanted it to be treated just as fairly with
Yeah.
with everything. And Pinley did. I mean, they had the quick thing where Pinley was like, I didn't mean to do it. Oh my gosh, and Gugu's like, you're better than me than them, or
Yeah.
better them than me. But
It felt I mean,
yeah,
I know Gura is the one that cares the least about it, but it still just felt very hypocritical to me.
I mean, could it be a way that the squad then can see Murderbot in a lighter light of, oh wow, even we're capable of murder for
I'll take it.
protection?
That sounds good to me, honestly. That's a totally reasonable way to write it and
Yeah.
not piss me off.
There could be a bridge there of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
understanding.
I actually think that would be great for Preservation Alliance to loosen up their morals a bit and they can get shit done because they're not like just willing to walk into traps like they would have in this episode.
yeah.
So I'm
Heard
kind of
that.
curious as a question here of what do we do in the finale? Get off the planet?
The
Is that 20
beacon
minutes of getting off the
goes.
planet?
Yeah, the beacon. Well, yeah, they're gonna be sad thinking Murderbot's dead, and then they're gonna try to bring it back to life, and then it's gonna have a voiceover if or when it starts to come back online. The beacon is up there, so they're going to get rescued. There's got to be something with the file for Murderbot.
Because
Yeah,
you could have
the
like
alien
if this
remnants
episode.
who
Oh, true. Yeah, I was gonna say if this episode was a minute longer, if you had seen like a ship in the, let's say, outer atmosphere, inner atmosphere, kind of coming or like reacting to the beacon, as in like that was their way extraction off of the planet, like that could have been the season finale.
yeah, yeah.
I agree.
It would have been a cliffhanger for anyone who was worried Murderbot would be dead, but it is. Yeah, I like that they faded to black because all systems go offline.
Do you
It
know
could have been.
the name of the next episode? I don't know. Is that a spoiler? I mean, is it
No, I know
something I
what it
should
is.
avoid
Yeah,
saying? It. Yeah, I feel like it's fair to say just because it's probably out there. It's what does it say? Perimeter, I think is what it's called.
perimeter. Yeah,
The perimeter, which has been a very common theme for Murderbot. Anytime he feels awkward, anytime he just wants to walk away from Preservation Alliance, he goes and runs the perimeter. Maybe this will be him getting over that and actually like trying to be open and honest with the group once they revive him. Because it's headcanon. Like I don't even think we need to talk about the idea that he's not coming back online like right away. Because otherwise, what's the show about? Unless they actually like focus on a different on a different sec unit that also goes by Murderbot, sounds ridiculous. So I think he'll recover. They're gonna all talk it out. They might mention the idea of the alien remnant actually going to it because it seemed like it actually was more than just like a item that they could sell. It seemed like it had physics. It was distorting physics around it, was it not? Like it seemed
right.
like it could open the door to something bigger. And I would really enjoy that. I feel like that would be a good way to queue up season 2.
Yeah, it depends how interested they are in these alien remnants, like research wise. Maybe that is something that they decide is worth their time and they want to research the alien remnants now that there's really no enemy except for the creatures that protect it or are around it. But yeah, I don't know how long. It's probably going to be a 20-minute episode. Maybe it's a 30-minute episode, just like this episode. But this episode really did feel like it could have been the finale. But this is a good big bang episode. And then let the 20-minute finale be, if it's a 20-minute finale, just be a quick wrap up.
35-minute finale.
Oh, they're going
So
large and in charge for this
it's
one.
gonna be the biggest one. That's actually honestly nice to hear. It means they have some big plan.
I like that. So yeah, I mean, we don't need to majorly break down this plan that they have, but I do want to talk about the comedy in this episode because there was some very good parts, and I think it was the funniest episode, and I think it may be my favorite of the 9 so far. I absolutely was dying when Murderbot's trying to make small talk, and
Mhm.
then it's like, I hate this planet too, and it's trying to like dap the guy up,
Yeah.
and
That was good.
um, and then of
Hmm.
course when the guy recognizes Sanctuary Moon and the lady. Do we even get a name? Probably. But again, we know that these enemies aren't really that big of a deal. She says the show sucks, just like most people are saying in the show. And again, he freaks out like he always does.
Mhm.
And he has his little snapback of 2,797 premium TV shows or whatever it is, TV episodes. Cracked me up. I was laughing this episode.
Yeah.
It was doing it for me.
Kind of already theorized what we want out of the finale, right? Is there anything else that any bucket list items that you want to see? Because you mentioned it, Jimmy, right? Like I brought up the alien remnants, but you mentioned the erased memory and what that actually means. I guess let's put a final guess on the board of the possible explanations for the erased memory because Murderbot went through it last episode. You guys talked about it on the podcast. Like, what is everybody's final guess? Was it something? I guess the two pieces of it is was it before or after the governor module was broken? Because that's still kind of up in the air, I guess. And then was he ordered to do it, and then that is why he got refurbished, or is that out of order?
I do want to give a shout to one of our commenters. They did say that they believe it could be a scenario where Murderbot was forced, and then that is the sole inspiration and motivation to hack the governor module in the first place, and then that's what leads to it happening, and then we move forward.
I like
I'm
that.
down with that. I do think it's going to end up being that Murderbot was forced to do this, and I'm not against at all this being a part of a larger conversation, like Kyle was saying, where Preservation Alliance, maybe their goal is to allow sec units to be no longer controlled. And I want to say, me and Kyle talked about this. They do say in this episode, because of the way the throwdowns were happening between Murderbot and the other sec units, Murderbot's holding up one of the people on the team, on the Grey Chris team, and it says that the sec units can't attack their own people. So me and Kyle were talking about how you can't just buy a sec unit and say, yo, go kill people, start killing people left and right. It still doesn't really answer about if I could buy somebody.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't disprove that at all. And you could just tell it to kill people that aren't you.
Yeah, right. Aren't your teammates. Right. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. So it gave us part of an answer, but it still didn't. If it's not part of your team who just bought the sec unit, I guess you can. I don't know.
It's almost like the Demerzel mystery of like what counts as empire, of like what she can actually do and stuff. But I see what you mean.
Yeah, for me, I think that, you know, there was a YouTube comment. I think it must have been last episode, so episode 8. Actually, I'm looking at it. No, I'm not. Let me scroll. Melissa Giroux mentioned that there is an answer from the books. So it seems about this memory thing. So we will get an answer at some point. It seems like the timeline that I'm aware of it, because of the way that Murderbot didn't necessarily deny or confirm whether the murders happened before or after the governor module. I'm going to say that it happened before it. And like the first scene is kind of just like a red herring. And where like we're going to think like, oh, he did that of his own, or I'm sorry, it did it of its own free will.
Right.
And it's not actually that. So that's my guess. I don't think it'll be maybe more complicated than that. I'm interested to see, again, could this be a breadcrumb of this deeper conspiracy of maybe what the show will be about moving forward? Or is it just going to be another just like small piece of information that adds a level of world building? Not entirely sure.
Hopefully we find out in the finale.
We will find out in a 35-minute finale. I thought this was a very good penultimate. I'm very interested to see what this finale will lead to, and if it will have some breadcrumbs for season 2. Hopefully it does. The signs are there for season 2. We haven't had any confirmation yet. I double checked. There's no confirmation of season 2, but they said that it looks good. So, you know, fingers crossed. I really liked this show. I think it deserves a season 2. I don't
still
think
at the top of all the Apple charts every time I'm on Apple TV. Like it's up there, top 3.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna say it's Severance or something like that, but it's a great show and it's an entertaining show. It deserves a season 2. All right, guys. Episode 9 is in the books. The penultimate is in the books. We have one more episode left. Thank you all for coming on this journey with us. Our journey with Preservation Alliance and Murderbot. All I have to say is please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because there's one more episode left. But also, July 11th, if you're watching Murderbot, I'm assuming you're a sci-fi fan, and Foundation is starting to look like peak sci-fi. So, July 11th, season 3. We're covering season 1 and season 2 currently. By the time you listen to this, you will most likely know that we are almost done Foundation seasons 1 and 2 with one more episode left, and then we will be caught up. Me and Kyle have never watched before. Luke watched. He's been guiding us through this journey. It's been a blast. Hit that subscribe button. If you're a fan of anything not Apple TV Plus, we have the Binge Empire podcast that will cover it. We have Dexter Resurrection, Stranger Things, Squid Game, Alien Earth, Gen V, all of the above will be on that feed. We'll leave the link in the descriptions. We also have the Bingetown TV podcast. That's where we have all the fun conversations, TV, movie, pop culture, trivia, recommendation, debates, all of the above. The link will be in the description. Once again, we are the Core Podcast covering all things Apple TV Plus, and thank you so much for listening.